In the quiet pre-dawn hours, the bustling New York City hospital is disrupted by urgent footsteps and panicked cries. Jack, a man in his late 30s with a weary face and trembling hands, rushes through the hospital doors carrying Sarah, a young, delicate-looking black girl. Her small, fragile frame, pale under the hospital's harsh fluorescent lights, is wrapped in a simple white dress. Her face, though marked by pain, bears an innocence that seems to belong to someone much younger than her years. Her wide, frightened eyes dart around, and her breathing is shallow as Jack struggles to keep his composure. "Please, help her." Jack's voice trembles with desperation, the echo of his cries filling the hallways. The sheer urgency in his voice stirs a wave of attention from nurses, doctors, and even patients waiting nearby. As they turn to look, their faces shift from curiosity to concern, then disbelief. Whispers ripple through the hallways as people watch this unusual scene unfold. A nurse, Megan, rushes forward, her brow furrowing as she tries to assess the situation. "What happened?" she asks, trying to maintain her professional demeanor, though a glint of worry flashes in her eyes. "Is she in labor?" "Yes," Jack replies, his voice cracking under the weight of emotion. "She's in labor. Please, she needs help right away," he begs, his tone pleading as he looks to the medical staff for reassurance. Megan, momentarily stunned, calls for a gurney. "We need a gurney at the main entrance now." Her voice rings out over the intercom, adding a sense of urgency. She moves closer to Sarah, gently brushing a hand over the girl's forehead. "Hang in there, sweetheart. We're going to take care of you," she whispers, though her mind is racing with confusion. How could someone so young? As the gurney arrives, Megan and another nurse carefully lift Sarah, laying her down while Jack attempts to follow. But Megan turns to him, firm yet compassionate. "Sir, you need to stay here. We'll take care of her." Jack nods reluctantly, his face a mixture of fear and helplessness as he watches Sarah disappear down the corridor. As Sarah is wheeled down the sterile hallway, Megan's heart pounds with a mix of professional focus and an unsettling sense of indignation. She glances back at the scene in the waiting area, where people stand frozen, their expressions mingling shock with quiet judgment. It's not every day that a young girl arrives in labor under such strange and troubling circumstances, and the nurses exchange concerned glances as they prepare Sarah for further examination. Dr. Harrison, a seasoned obstetrician with salt and pepper hair and a calm but intense presence, enters the room, glancing down at Sarah's chart. He's seen countless emergencies over his 25 years in medicine, but something about this case fills him with unease. "Megan," he says in a low, firm voice, "give me the rundown. Who is she, and how did she get here?" Megan hesitates, choosing her words carefully. "This is Sarah, brought in by a man. He says she's in labor," she explains, her voice tinged with disbelief. "But there's something off. The man claims he's responsible for her, but I don't know. It doesn't feel right." Dr. Harrison narrows his eyes, nodding thoughtfully. He steps closer to Sarah, whose face is a tight mask of pain, her small hands clutching the blanket. He reaches out, giving her shoulder a reassuring pat, his gaze softening. "Sarah," he says gently, "we're here to help you. Can you tell us how you're feeling? Do you understand what's happening?" Sarah, though visibly exhausted, meets his eyes, struggling to respond through her pain. She manages a weak nod, confirming her awareness, but offers no other words. The tension in the room is palpable as Dr. Harrison exchanges a glance with Megan, who can't help but feel a tinge of anger rise within her. How had Sarah ended up in this state? In the waiting area, Jack sits, his head in his hands, seemingly oblivious to the wary glances of strangers around him. Whispers grow louder, fueled by assumptions and disbelief, spreading a sense of suspicion and moral outrage. The staff pushes away their own discomfort, focusing on stabilizing Sarah, yet beneath their professionalism, the question lingers. What happened to this girl, and why is she here alone with this man? Back in the waiting room, tension hangs thick in the air. Jack is slumped in a plastic chair, his shoulders hunched forward as he tries to block out the whispers and hostile stares directed his way. The other people in the room exchange glances, their faces marked with judgment and disbelief. their low murmurs punctuated by words he can't help but catch. "Did you see her? She looked like a child," mutters a middle-aged woman with disbelief, clutching her handbag tightly. A man next to her leans closer, his expression twisted in disdain. "I can't believe someone would do that. He must be responsible." The accusation is barely a whisper, but it carries a harsh weight that settles heavily over Jack. Across the room, an older man with a military bearing and steely gaze watches Jack closely, his arms crossed over his chest. He stands, his steps purposeful, and stops directly in front of Jack. The room falls silent, a collective breath held in anticipation of what might happen next. "You," the man growls, gripping the collar of Jack's jacket and pulling him to his feet. Jack's eyes widen in shock as he raises his hands in a placating gesture. "Wait, please. You don't understand." "No, I think I understand just fine." The man cuts him off, his voice filled with contempt. "You're a monster. How dare you do this to a kid?" His words are loud, piercing the room, turning every head in their direction. A nurse, hearing the commotion, rushes over, placing herself between them. "Sir, that's enough. This is a hospital, not a courtroom," she says firmly. Her voice tints as she tries to defuse the situation. "Please let the authorities handle it." The man releases Jack with a shove, causing him to stumble back into his chair. As he settles back down, gasping for breath, Jack's eyes dart around the room, catching the looks of contempt directed at him. He opens his mouth, his voice barely a whisper, pleading into the silence. "It's not what you think. I'm trying to help her." But his words are drowned out by murmurs of anger and disgust from every corner of the waiting room. The collective judgment weighs down on him, a tide of condemnation that he can't fight. All he can do now is wait, holding on to a faint hope that Sarah's truth will be revealed before the whispers turn into irreversible accusations. Moments later, two uniformed police officers stride into the waiting room, their presence adding a new tension to the already charged atmosphere. Eyes follow them as they make their way directly to Jack, who's still visibly shaken. He looks up at the officers, his face a mask of anxiety and exhaustion. One officer, a tall man with a steady gaze, places a firm hand on Jack's shoulder. "Sir, we're going to need you to come with us," he says, his tone polite but unyielding. Jack's face tightens as he tries to stand his ground. "But please, you don't understand," Jack protests, his voice cracking. "Sarah, she needs me. She's my responsibility. I brought her here for help." The second officer, a woman with a sympathetic expression tempered by duty, tilts her head. "If that's true, then you'll have a chance to explain everything to us. Right now, though, we need to ensure that all procedures are followed. We just want to ask you a few questions." Jack's gaze shifts back to the doors through which Sarah had disappeared. He hesitates, clearly torn, but then nods slowly. "All right," he whispers, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "I'll come with you." They escort him down a series of hallways to a quiet room at the back of the hospital. The room is stark, with bare walls and a single metal table flanked by two chairs. The fluorescent lights overhead cast a cold, sterile glow, intensifying Jack's sense of isolation. He sinks into one of the chairs, his hands fidgeting nervously on the tabletop. The officers sit across from him, their expressions carefully neutral. The female officer clears her throat, breaking the heavy silence. "So, Mr. Thompson," she begins, "we've received concerning allegations regarding your relationship with Sarah. Can you tell us your side of the story?" Jack takes a deep breath, struggling to compose himself. "Sarah isn't. She's not a child," he says, choosing his words carefully. "She's my English teacher. She's 27 years old, but she has a medical condition that makes her look younger. I know this sounds strange, but I swear, I'm telling the truth." The male officer raises an eyebrow, skepticism etched into his face. "A medical condition?" he repeats, clearly unconvinced. "That sounds convenient, don't you think?" "I know how it sounds," Jack responds, desperation creeping into his voice. "But I swear, she has this condition, something with her pituitary gland. Please, just let her wake up and explain. She'll confirm everything." The officers exchange glances, doubt lingering between them. Finally, the female officer leans forward, her gaze softening slightly. "We'll look into her medical records, Mr. Thompson. For now, though, we need to ensure everyone's safety. Until we verify your story, you'll need to remain in custody." Jack nods, his head hanging low. The harsh reality settles over him as he realizes that his word alone may not be enough. Meanwhile, in the operating room, Dr. Harrison is deeply focused on Sarah's condition. Her frail body lies motionless under the bright surgical lights, and the medical team moves quickly, their movements a practiced choreography honed by years of experience. As Dr. Harrison prepares for the delivery, a series of details about Sarah's physical state catches attention, each one more baffling than the last. Her vitals are stable, Megan reports, but her voice carries a hint of disbelief. "Doctor, are we sure about her age?" Dr. Harrison furrows his brow, nodding. "We'll do our jobs first, and the questions can wait until later. Let's focus." The baby is delivered successfully, a strong, healthy cry filling the room. Relief washes over the team, but Dr. Harrison remains perplexed as he continues the procedure. As he examines Sarah's internal anatomy, his astonishment grows. Her organs, from the uterus to her ovaries, resemble those of a fully matured woman, not a child. "This doesn't make any sense," he mutters under his breath, momentarily forgetting the presence of his team. His mind races through possibilities, each more improbable than the last. Once Sarah is stable and moved to recovery, Dr. Harrison steps out of the operating room, determination hardening his gaze. He heads straight to the hospital records office, calling in a favor from a colleague in endocrinology. He needs answers, and he needs them now. Hours later, Sarah begins to stir, her eyes fluttering open as she blinks against the light. Megan, standing by her bedside, offers a gentle smile. "Sarah, you're safe. You did amazing. Your baby is healthy." Sarah's face lights up with a mix of relief and exhaustion. But as her awareness returns, worry clouds her expression. "Jack," she whispers hoarsely. "Is he okay?" Megan hesitates, unsure how much to reveal. He's talking with the police. There were some questions, but maybe you can help clarify things." Dr. Harrison enters the room, his usual calm softened with a mix of curiosity and compassion. "Sarah, we need to talk. I noticed some unusual aspects of your case," he begins, his voice kind but direct. "Your organs are fully developed, and you're clearly of age, yet your outward appearance doesn't match. Can you help us understand?" Sarah swallows, nodding slightly. "I have a rare condition, hypopituitarism. It affects my growth. I'm an adult, I promise," she explains, her voice steady despite her fatigue. "Jack didn't do anything wrong. He's just helping me." Dr. Harrison nods thoughtfully, his skepticism slowly easing. "Thank you, Sarah. We'll do everything we can to get this straightened out. Rest now. We'll make sure Jack knows you're safe." With the new information in hand, Dr. Harrison wastes no time. He heads straight to the hospital's administrative office and makes a call to the local precinct, determined to clarify the situation surrounding Jack. He requests to speak with the officer in charge, emphasizing the urgency of the matter. Back at the police station, Jack sits in a sterile, cold interrogation room, his fingers anxiously tapping on the table. His mind is consumed with thoughts of Sarah and the baby, his worry mounting with each passing minute. Just as he begins to lose hope, the door opens, and the lead detective, Officer Shaw, steps in, followed by Dr. Harrison, who offers Jack a reassuring nod. "Dr. Harrison," Officer Shaw begins, "what do you have for us?" Dr. Harrison opens a file, laying down Sarah's medical records in front of the officer. Sarah is indeed an adult. She has a condition called hypopituitarism, which affects her physical development. This condition has caused her to look much younger than she is, he explains, his tone firm. Jack's account aligns with the medical evidence. He's not here under suspicious circumstances. He's here because he was genuinely trying to help her. The detective reviews the documents, his expression shifting from skepticism to comprehension. He looks back at Jack, his gaze now softened, though he maintains a professional demeanor. "Mr. Thompson, we're beginning to see this situation differently. It looks like there's been a grave misunderstanding." Jack releases a shaky breath, relief flooding his face. "Thank you, doctor. I wanted to make sure she was safe. That's all I've wanted." Dr. Harrison places a reassuring hand on Jack's shoulder. "She's safe and resting. The baby's healthy, and Sarah is doing well." Officer Shaw nods, flipping through the documents. "We'll clear this up, Mr. Thompson. Until then, we'll have to keep you here just a bit longer while we finalize our reports, but you'll be free to go shortly." Jack nods, his face a mixture of relief and residual tension. "Thank you. Just, please, let her know I'll be there soon." As Dr. Harrison exits, he glances back, making a silent promise to both Jack and Sarah that he'll see this through to the end. The events of the day weigh heavily on him, but he knows that finally, the truth is coming to light, and soon, Jack will be reunited with Sarah. The following morning, Jack is finally released from custody, cleared of all suspicions thanks to Dr. Harrison's intervention. He makes his way back to the hospital, his heart racing with anticipation. The air in the hospital is filled with the sterile scent of antiseptics, but to Jack, it smells like hope and relief. As he enters Sarah's room, he pauses for a moment, taking in the sight of her resting with a small bundle cradled in her arms. Sarah, though exhausted, looks up at him with a soft, grateful smile, her face lighting up with relief. Her hand instinctively reaches out, and Jack steps forward, taking it gently in his own. "Jack," she murmurs, her voice filled with emotion. "Thank you. Thank you for everything. I don't know what I would have done without you." Jack squeezes her hand, his gaze steady and filled with quiet admiration. "You don't need to thank me, Sarah. I told you I'd be here for you, no matter what," he says, his voice breaking slightly as the weight of the past few days finally settles on him. "I'm just glad you're okay. You and the baby." A pause fills the room as they look at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. The intensity of the past days has deepened their bond, and it's clear that what once might have been a simple student-teacher relationship has transformed into something more profound. "Jack," Sarah begins, hesitating, "I've been through a lot lately, with everything that happened, and, with him leaving." She glances down at the baby, her face clouding momentarily with sadness. "I thought I'd be doing this alone. I was so scared." Jack reaches out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "You don't have to be alone, Sarah. I've been by your side for a long time now. I care about you more than you know." His words are careful, but the emotion in his voice is undeniable. Sarah's eyes fill with tears as she looks up at him, the weight of her gratitude and affection visible in her gaze. "You've been my rock through all of this, Jack. I never imagined that I could feel this way about someone, especially after everything." He offers a soft smile, brushing her hand with his thumb. "Then let's take it one day at a time. We'll figure it out together. You, me, and this little one." For the first time in days, Sarah feels a sense of peace. In that small, quiet hospital room, surrounded by beeping monitors and soft light, they share a moment that is both hopeful and healing, a new beginning rooted in understanding, trust, and love. In the days that follow, Jack becomes a constant presence in Sarah's hospital room, helping her adjust to life with her newborn and standing by her side as she recovers. Their growing bond doesn't go unnoticed by the hospital staff, who are moved by Jack's unwavering devotion. Nurses, doctors, and even other patients begin to see Jack and Sarah as a symbol of resilience and the strength of human connection. Nurse Megan, who had first encountered Sarah and Jack in the chaos of the emergency room, often stops by to check on them. One morning, she enters with a warm smile, balancing a tray of food for Sarah. "Good morning, you too," she says, setting the tray down. "Oatmeal, fresh orange juice, and some fruit to keep you going, Sarah." Sarah, who has grown used to Megan's comforting presence, smiles gratefully. "Thank you, Megan. You've all been so wonderful to me," she replies, adjusting her position in bed, her voice soft but filled with appreciation. Megan smiles as she helps rearrange Sarah's pillows. "It's the least we can do. You've been through so much and, well, seeing you two together, it's inspiring," she says, glancing between Sarah and Jack with a knowing smile. "It's not every day we see someone as dedicated as Jack here." Jack chuckles, a bit embarrassed, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm just doing what anyone would, he replies modestly. But his gaze softens as he looks over at Sarah, and it's clear to everyone in the room that his commitment goes far beyond ordinary concern. Another nurse, Rosa, who has a reputation for being tough but caring, also stops by regularly. During one of her rounds, she approaches Jack while Sarah is resting. "Listen, young man," she says, her voice both stern and kind. "You're doing a good job. Sarah and that little one need you, and from what I can see, you're exactly where you should be." Jack nods, touched by her words. "Thank you, Rosa. I wouldn't be anywhere else." Over time, the hospital staff comes to admire the way Jack cares for Sarah and her newborn. They watch as he brings flowers to her room, sits by her side reading books, and even gently coaxes her to walk down the hallway to regain her strength. His devotion to Sarah becomes a source of quiet inspiration, a reminder to everyone around of the impact of kindness, empathy, and love in the midst of life struggles. As the days turn into weeks, Sarah's health steadily improves. Each morning, with Jack's help, she takes careful steps down the hospital corridor, working to regain her strength. The hospital's white-tiled floors and clinical scent begin to feel almost comforting, a place where she's found unexpected support and connection. Jack remains by her side, offering a hand whenever she needs it, his patience unwavering. One afternoon, as Jack supports her on their slow walk, a fellow patient, an elderly woman named Mrs. Whitaker, approaches them with a gentle smile. Her gray hair is pulled back, and she leans on a cane, her kind eyes shining with empathy. "I don't mean to intrude," she says softly, "but watching the two of you has been a blessing. You remind me of what really matters in life." Sarah blushes, leaning slightly closer to Jack for support. "Thank you, Mrs. Whitaker. We're just taking it one step at a time," she replies, her voice warm but humble. Mrs. Whitaker nods, her smile widening. "That's all any of us can do. And sometimes, one step at a time is all you need to build something strong." After Mrs. Whitaker continues on her way, Sarah turns to Jack, her gaze filled with a mixture of vulnerability and affection. "I never thought I'd be here," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "After everything that's happened, I thought I'd be alone. I never imagined I'd have someone like you by my side." Jack squeezes her hand, his own voice thick with emotion. "Sarah, you're not alone, and you never will be. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Their connection deepens with each passing day, as they find strength and comfort in each other's presence. They share stories, moments of laughter, and quiet conversations about the future, their bond strengthened by the trials they've faced and the kindness that has surrounded them within these hospital walls. The staff continues to cheer them on, offering encouragement and small acts of kindness, like bringing extra blankets or freshly brewed coffee for Jack. He's become a fixture in the hospital, known by name to nearly everyone, his dedication inspiring admiration and even a touch of envy among the onlookers. Every moment spent together brings Jack and Sarah closer, and by now, it's clear to both of them that what began as mutual support has blossomed into something deeper. It's no longer a question of if they'll be together, but rather of how they'll begin the next chapter of their lives, one filled with love, gratitude, and the promise of brighter days ahead. Finally, the day arrives for Sarah and her baby to leave the hospital. The sun is shining brightly over New York City, casting a hopeful glow over the bustling streets outside. Jack carefully wheels Sarah, holding the baby nestled in her arms, toward the hospital's main exit. Their faces reflect a mixture of relief, joy, and a hint of nervousness as they step into their new life. As they reach the exit, they're surprised by a small crowd of hospital staff, nurses, doctors, and a few patients they've come to know over the past weeks. The group applauds softly, a gesture of farewell and admiration for the family they've come to support. Megan, the nurse who had first met them in the chaotic early hours, steps forward with a bouquet of flowers, a warm smile lighting up her face. "Take care of each other," she says, her voice thick with emotion. "You both have come so far, and I just know you're going to be okay." Sarah accepts the flowers, blinking back tears. "Thank you, Megan, for everything. I'll never forget the kindness you've shown us." Jack nods in agreement, his eyes scanning the faces of those who have been part of their journey. You've all been like family to us, he adds, his voice steady but emotional. We couldn't have done this without you. As they step outside, they're momentarily startled by the flash of cameras. A few local reporters have gathered, drawn by word of Sarah's unusual story and the resilience of their small family. One of them steps forward, extending a microphone. Sarah, Jack, how does it feel to be starting this new chapter together? Sarah takes a deep breath, looking from her baby to Jack, then back at the reporter. It feels overwhelming, but also like a gift, she says, her voice steady but filled with emotion. There were moments I thought I'd never make it, but I've been surrounded by people who gave me strength when I had none left. And now, I'm ready to move forward, Jack adds, his hand resting protectively on Sarah's shoulder. We're incredibly grateful. We've learned that love and support can come from unexpected places, and that's made all the difference. As they make their way through the crowd, the weight of their journey lifts, replaced by a sense of possibility and hope. Back at home, surrounded by the warmth of a new beginning, they settle into the simple joys of family life. Jack becomes a doting partner and father, and Sarah, fully healed, embraces motherhood with a resilience shaped by her past struggles. Years later, their story remains an inspiration to those who knew them, a testament to the strength of love and the power of human connection. And as Sarah and Jack look toward the future, they do so with a renewed sense of purpose, their family bound together by the kindness and courage that saw them through their darkest days. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and watch this next story. It's truly heartwarming.